They say you're too quiet, too intense, too much. You speak, and the room goes silent, not because you're wrong, but because you're different. You notice what others overlook. You question what most accept without thought. Slowly, people begin to drift away. They laugh at things that bore you. They chase drama, trends, and surface-level distractions, while you're lost in thoughts about life, meaning and death. You try to fit in. You smile when expected, but deep down, you feel like a stranger among your own kind. Eventually, you wonder, is something wrong with me? But what if the problem isn't you? What if society simply isn't built for people like you? The German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer believed real intelligence isolates. The deeper you think, the more alienated you become. Most people don't want truth. They want comfort, and intelligent minds threaten that comfort. This video reveals the brutal truth Schopenhauer uncovered, why society rejects the truly intelligent, and why your loneliness might be the highest proof of your mind. It starts early. You sit in a classroom, surrounded by peers but feel off, not superior. Just disconnect. While others laugh without thinking, you're lost in thought. Why do people say things they don't mean? Why does small talk feel like noise? Why does it seem like you're watching life instead of living? This is the first taste of the silent curse that comes with intelligence, not academic success, but the kind that questions too much and feels too deep. The kind that spots contradictions, notices hypocrisy, and finds it impossible to just go with the flow. As you grow, the disconnect deepens. You hold back in conversations. Honesty makes others uncomfortable. Asking too many whys kills the vibe. So you nod, smile, pretend, because being understood feels impossible. People mistake you for arrogance, but you're just exhausted from trying to explain yourself. You're not cold. You've learned that depth scares people. So you lock away your insights, censor your questions, hide your pain. Here lies the paradox. Society claims to admire intelligence, but emotionally rejects it in its rawest form. We worship genius in theory, but in reality, the truly intelligent are isolated. Why? Because real intelligence doesn't just solve problems, it challenges norms, it sees through illusions, it questions what others blindly accept, and that makes people uncomfortable. You become too complex for surface-level connections, too analytical to enjoy simple pleasures without dissecting them, too aware to truly relax. The emotional toll is invisible, but crushing. You sit in rooms full of people, but feel utterly alone. You crave connections that go beyond shallow chatter, connections that understand your depth, your intensity, your mind, yet most can't follow. They shy away. They call you intense, distant, or too much, not realizing that your mind is wired differently. But your loneliness isn't a flaw. It's a sign that your intelligence refuses to be watered down or ignored. You carry a rare gift, the ability to see the world not just as it is, but as it could be. And that perspective often sets you apart. So, don't apologize for your depth. Don't dim your brilliance to make others comfortable. Your mind is a sanctuary of complexity and clarity, and it deserves to be honored. In a world built for the average, your intelligence is a revolution. Your solitude is the price of truth. But remember, even the rarest minds find others who understand. And when you do, that connection is powerful, raw, authentic, and unbreakable. They say you're too quiet, too intense, too much. You speak, and the room falls silent, not because you're wrong, but because you're different. You see what others miss. You question what most accept without thought. Slowly, people drift away. They laugh at things that bore you. They chase drama and trends while you ponder life, meaning, and death. You try to blend in, smile when expected, but deep down, you feel like a stranger among your own kind. You begin to wonder, is something wrong with me? But what if the problem isn't you? What if society isn't built for people like you? Philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer believed real intelligence isolates. The deeper you think, the more alienated you become. Most want comfort, not truth. Intelligent minds threaten that comfort. This video reveals the harsh truth. Schopenhauer uncovered why society rejects the truly intelligent, and why your loneliness is proof of your mind. It starts early. In a classroom full of peers, you feel off, not superior. Just disconnect. While others laugh mindlessly, you're lost in thought. Why do people say things they don't mean? Why is small talk noise? Why do you feel like a spectator in life? This is the silent curse of intelligence, not academic success, but the kind that questions deeply, notices contradictions, and refuses to follow blindly. As you grow, the disconnect deepens. You hold back honesty because it makes others uncomfortable. You learn that asking why too often kills the mood. So you nod, smile, pretend because being understood feels impossible. People mistake your silence for arrogance, but you're just tired. Depth scares most. So you hide your insights, censor your questions, and bury your pain. Here's the paradox. Society claims to admire intelligence, but emotionally rejects it raw and real. Genius is worshipped in theory, but in practice, the truly intelligent are isolated. Why? Because intelligence doesn't just solve problems, it challenges norms, it exposes illusions. It questions what others accept without thought, and that unsettles people. You become too complex for small talk, too analytical for simple pleasures, too aware to relax. The emotional cost is invisible, but heavy. You sit in rooms full of people but feel alone. You crave connection that goes beyond surface, but most can't follow. They call you intense, distant, or too much because your mind is wired differently. The world doesn't teach intelligent people how to handle this loneliness. It teaches success, performance, but not how to simply exist when you think different. So, you adapt. You become a chameleon, dumbing down, blending in, learning when to be silent. Not because you want to, but because you must. Because every time you spoke your truth, you paid a price. But inside, sadness builds a quiet hunger for meaning, a question. Am I the only one who feels this way? You're not. That silent suffering is not weakness. It's the survival of a rare mind in a shallow world. Schopenhauer saw this centuries ago. There's a hidden rule. Don't think too much. Don't question the script. Don't step out of line. Follow what's popular, say what's safe, agree with the loudest voice. He called this the herd, the tendency to surrender independent thought, not because people are stupid, but because thinking differently is dangerous. That's why intelligent people are feared, not for being smarter, but for refusing to worship the herd. When someone asks why, the group gets nervous. When someone sees contradictions or challenges traditions, the group defends itself. It's not logic, it's psychology. Everywhere, schools, workplaces, communities, there's pressure. Conform, or be cast out. Intelligent minds resist not out of rebellion, but from curiosity and truth. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Thinking differently is not admired. It's a threat. Intelligence questions comfort. It disrupts illusion. It shines a light on what people want to hide. When you reveal the group's hypocrisy, suggest unapproved ideas, or challenge the system, you don't get applause. You get labeled weird, too intense, not a team player. In modern workplaces, innovation is praised except when it challenges the status quo. Those who speak uncomfortable truths are sidelined. Questioning inefficiency means overthinking. Avoiding gossip labels you antisocial. In schools, students who follow rules blindly are rewarded. Those who ask too many questions are labeled disruptive, not because they're wrong, but because they threaten the herd. This is the reality of intelligence in a world afraid of truth, because they challenge authority. Even online platforms, where free thought should thrive, punish complexity. Algorithms favor simplicity, repetition, and emotional manipulation, not nuance, not depth, not intelligence. So what happens to the truly intelligent in such a system? They learn to hide, to shrink, to wear masks just to survive. And eventually, society gets exactly what it wants: silent brilliance, genius, trapped behind social anxiety, potential buried under years of self-doubt, wisdom never shared because it's never welcome. This is the ultimate irony. The world claims it wants intelligence, but only the kind that plays nice, that doesn't make people uncomfortable, that fits inside a neat little box. But real intelligence is messy. It refuses slogans, ignores trends, and never flatters egos. It confronts them. That's why society pushes it away. To be truly intelligent is to be misunderstood, to be feared, to be alone in a room full of people nodding to lies you see clearly. It's not just rejection, it's social exile. When you see through the game, you stop playing. And when you stop playing, you stop belonging. That's the cost of non-conformity. For those who refuse to betray their minds, it's a price paid silently every day. But Schopenhauer saw meaning in this suffering. He didn't treat intelligence as a privilege, but as a burden few could bear. Those who carry it must walk a lonelier path, but a truer one. Arthur Schopenhauer wasn't your typical philosopher. He didn't sugarcoat reality or promise happiness. He believed life's core was suffering, and the more conscious you are, the more you feel it. To many that sounds bleak, but for those who live with the quiet despair of thinking too much and feeling too deeply, it feels honest, like someone finally told the truth. Born in 1788 in Germany, Schopenhauer grew up in a wealthy but emotionally cold household. His father was a strict rational merchant, his mother, a literary socialite, who later rejected his pessimism. From early on, Schopenhauer felt like an outsider. He observed life with such depth. He was more witness than participant, and his philosophy reflects that. His most famous idea: a man can be himself only so long as he is alone. According to Schopenhauer, intelligence leads to isolation, not by choice, but by consequence. The deeper your understanding of life, the more alienated you become from those who live on its surface. At the heart of his worldview lies the concept of the will, a blind, irrational force driving all living beings. It isn't logical. It doesn't care about truth. It simply wants, endlessly, mindlessly, painfully. In Schopenhauer's view, most people are ruled by this will, acting on impulse and desire, oblivious to deeper meaning. But the intelligent mind sees beyond, questioning this endless striving, and that's where conflict begins. You become aware of life's contradictions, of society's illusions, of the fragile masks everyone wears to survive. This clarity sets you apart, but it also makes you vulnerable. You're caught between knowing too much and being understood too little, between craving connection and fearing superficiality. Yet within this solitude, there's strength. Schopenhauer believed the burden of intelligence is also its gift, a path to truth and freedom few dare to follow. So if you feel alone in your mind, disconnected from the world around you, remember your loneliness is proof you think deeply, that you refuse to settle for comfortable illusions. You're walking a hard but honest path, the path of real intelligence. And though society may reject you, your mind's clarity is a light in the darkness, a rare and necessary force in a world too often satisfied with shadow. By this will, they chase pleasure, power, validation, not because they've carefully thought it through, but because they're caught in a cycle of desire they can't even recognize. The truly intelligent, the thinkers, the observers, they begin to see this trap. They step outside it, detach, and that's where the suffering starts. Because once you see the world for what it really is, a dance of illusions driven by unconscious craving, you can never unsee it. You stop laughing at the same jokes. Small talk feels empty, hollow. You drift like a ghost through a party that never ends, wondering why no one else notices the void. Schopenhauer put it simply, the less intelligent a man is, the less mysterious existence seems to him. Ignorance isn't just bliss, it's belonging. When you start asking deeper questions about meaning, mortality and morality, you lose your place in the tribe, not because they hate you, but because they don't understand. Schopenhauer didn't hate society. He believed society and solitude serve two very different purposes. Society keeps you entertained, solitude makes you real. And the truly intelligent, they eventually crave what society can't give: silence, clarity, authenticity. This is why Schopenhauer praised solitude, not as loneliness, but as liberation. Great men, he said, are like eagles who build their nests on high, lonely cliffs. Intelligence, to him, wasn't glamorous. It was a curse that strips away comfort and forces you into an existential exile. Yet, he never gave in to despair. Instead, he pointed to a higher way: contemplation, art, philosophy, turning your suffering into insight, your alienation into wisdom. He was one of the few philosophers brave enough to say that the pain of thinking too much is real, that the disconnection you feel when no one understands your mind is valid, that the sense something is deeply wrong with the world isn't your imagination. That's why his work still speaks to those who feel out of place, sitting in classrooms, meetings, family dinners, surrounded by words but starving for meaning. For Schopenhauer, suffering is the price of clarity. And while the world mocks those who see too much, he whispered through the pages of his book, "You are not broke, you are just awake." His philosophy isn't about fixing life, it's about enduring it honest, without lie, facing the darkness not with fear, but with dignity. Because in the end, intelligence might isolate you from others, but it connects you to something far greater: truth, art, beauty, your own soul. Schopenhauer believed this is a higher connection, one no crowd can offer, and no rejection can take away. Loneliness is often seen as a failure of social life, but what if it's sometimes the price of deeper thinking? Modern psychology is beginning to confirm what philosophers like Schopenhauer already understood. The burden of intelligence is often loneliness, but that loneliness doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're awake, awake to truths most can't bear, awake to a world that demands more than surface comfort, awake to your own unique journey. So the next time you feel disconnected or misunderstood, remember your solitude is a sign of your mind's depth, your soul's clarity, and your courage to live authentically in a world designed for conformity. You're not alone in feeling alone. You're among the few who truly see. And that is a gift, both a challenge and a call to keep walking your path, no matter how quiet, no matter how lonely, because it is yours alone to walk. Schopenhauer understood long ago that high intelligence often walks hand in hand with deep isolation. Let's dive into the science behind this truth. A 2016 study published in the British Journal of Psychology revealed something striking. The more intelligent a person is, the less joy they find in frequent socializing. For most, spending time with friends boosts happiness, but for highly intelligent individuals, too much social interaction can cause frustration, overstimulation, and a hollow emptiness. Why? Because most conversations skim the surface. Their minds hunger for depth, nuance, complex ideas, not gossip, repetition, or emotional noise. They care about people deeply, yet struggle with the typical forms of connection society offers. This creates a kind of cognitive loneliness, not just being alone, but feeling isolated while surrounded by others who don't think like you. Here lies the emotional paradox. On one side, highly intelligent people are introspective. They analyze, reflect, overthink. They live in mental worlds others rarely glimpse, sculpting vast universes of thought. But on the other side, they're human. They crave connection, intimacy, and resonance. They want someone who doesn't just nod along, but truly gets it. Someone who hears what's unsaid, and understands what's invisible. This is the psychological trap. The smarter you are, the harder it becomes to find someone who understands your loneliness. This isn't arrogance, it's neuroscience. Dr. Thomas Suddenor, a cognitive evolution expert, explains that our brains evolved in small tribal groups of 100 to 150 people. Our intelligence was shaped by the need to survive and belong in tight social circles. But modern high IQ individuals live in a completely different world. They process information faster, think abstractly, challenge norms, and no longer fit the emotional blueprint of tribal belonging. Their minds become evolutionary misfits, and that gap hurts. Because deep intelligence often brings emotional dysregulation, not because something's broken, but because there's too much happening inside. Imagine juggling 10 thoughts when others manage one. Imagine noticing every micro-expression in every conversation. Imagine replaying a single word for hours, trying to understand what it really meant. This sensitivity isn't a superpower, it's a burden. It can trigger anxiety, depression, emotional burnout, not because the world is cruel, but because it isn't built to hold people who feel so deeply and think so expansive. A Harvard study even showed that highly intelligent children report greater feelings of alienation and existential worry from a young age. They realize they're different, and instead of being celebrated, this difference is often punished. They hear, "You think too much. Why can't you just be normal? Stop asking so many questions." So they internalize the message, maybe something's wrong with. This creates an internal conflict, a push and pull between self-expression and self-protection. They want to open up, but have been shut down too many times. They want connection but fear rejection. Their minds crave understanding, but their hearts brace for isolation. This is the silent struggle of intelligence, not just a gift but a challenge, a lonely road, paved with brilliant thoughts and unshared feelings. But here's the truth, your loneliness is not a flaw, it's the cost of seeing too clearly. The mark of a mind that refuses to settle for shallow comforts. You are not broken, you are awake, and in that awakening lies both the burden and the beauty of true intelligence. They've learned it's safer to pull back, to build emotional walls, silently hoping someone will notice the quiet behind them. But most never do. Even in romantic relationships, this pattern repeats. Highly intelligent individuals often struggle to feel truly seen, not just admired, but understood. They might seem distant or cold, but the truth is, they're guarding a depth that's been misunderstood or mishandled too many times. It's not that they don't want love, they do, but they've realized most people fall in love with the idea of intelligence, not the complex emotional reality it carries. Psychologist Kazimierz Dąbrowski called this overexcitability. It's a heightened sensitivity across 5 domains: intellectual, emotional, imaginative, sensory, and psychomotor. Simply put, smart people feel more, think more, and suffer more. This intensity fuels creativity and insight, but it also widens the gap between them and the world around them. Here's the hidden truth. Loneliness doesn't always mean something is missing. Sometimes, it means something is unmatched. A mind that sees through illusions, a heart that refuses shallow conversations, a soul that craves meaning more than comfort. Such a person will always feel a bit apart, not because they failed socially, but because they are wired for something deeper, something rarer. So, if you've ever felt this kind of loneliness, not just absence of people, but absence of resonance, it might not be a curse. It might be a quiet signal that you're among the few who are not just alive, but truly awake. You might think intelligence would bring admiration, and at first it often does, but behind admiration frequently lurks something dark: envy. Envy has a strange way of twisting reverence into rejection. Most won't admit this, not even to themselves, but in everyday life, intelligent people often encounter subtle or overt resentment, not because they're unkind, but because they expose something painful in others. Insecurity. When you enter a room speaking with clarity, depth, or confidence, some won't really hear your words. Instead, they'll hear their own inadequacy, feel overshadowed, diminished. That sting. It's the ego fighting to protect itself. This is where the Dunning-Kruger effect comes in. Named after psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger, it describes how people with lower ability tend to overestimate their competence. They don't know what they don't know. Now introduce someone truly intelligent into the mix, and suddenly their illusion shatters. Confronted with their limitations, many react defensively. They label the intelligent person arrogant, cold, weird, or think they believe they're better than everyone else. But here's the irony. The intelligent never said. Their ego simply misheard, because intelligence doesn't just challenge ideas, it challenges identities. In tribal psychology, This creates a social threat. Humans evolved in groups where acceptance meant survival. Standing out, thinking differently, questioning norms wasn't just frowned upon, it was dangerous. This primal wiring makes deep thinkers outsiders by default. They shake the foundations of group consensus, and groups resist that disturbance fiercely. So what does all this mean for you? It means your loneliness, your sense of being misunderstood, might be the natural consequence of thinking too deeply and seeing too clearly. It's the cost of refusing to blend in and accept easy answers, but it also means you carry a rare strength. You possess a mind that pierces illusions, a heart that craves authenticity, a soul that refuses the superficial. You are not broken, you are simply awake in a world still half asleep. And that is a truth worth embracing, even if it means walking the path less traveled, sometimes alone, but always real. The strongest among us. Solitude, he argued, is not the absence of life, but the presence of self. It is in the quiet that true intelligence finds its sanctuary, away from the chaos of conformity and the shallow noise of approval seeking. Think about it throughout history. The greatest minds were often isolated, not because they wanted to be, but because their ideas demanded space to breathe. They challenged accepted truths, unraveling the comfortable narratives that society clings to so tight. This challenge feels like a threat to the status quo, and when threatened, people react not with curiosity, but with fear and hostility. Socrates was sentenced to death, not for his teaching, but for unsettling the complacency of Athens. Galileo's ideas were censored because they disrupted the church's control, not because they were wrong. Tesla's genius was overshadowed by envy and misunderstanding, leading to a lonely demise. Alan Turing, who cracked Nazi codes and saved millions, was destroyed by prejudice rather than celebrate. These stories are not relics of the past. Today, innovators, deep thinkers, and truth-tellers often face the same rejection in quieter, subtler way. In offices, their voices are dismissed. In schools, they're labeled troublemakers. In relationships, they're told they're too much. Their brilliance threatens comfort zones and exposes mediocrity, and that makes people uneasy. The truth is, society demands intelligence only when it doesn't challenge personal comfort or disrupt group harmony. A viral quote or a clever meme is admired, but genuine clarity, raw honesty, and profound insight provoke resistance. People want inspiration without confrontation, admiration without accountability. So, if you've ever felt rejected, not because of who you are, but because of how clearly you see, know this. Your presence is awakening something others are not ready to face. That discomfort is not your fault, it's the reflection of their fear. What do you do when the very gift that makes you special also isolates you? When your mind dives deeper than most can follow, but no one around seems to understand. Arthur Schopenhauer didn't sugarcoat this dilemma. He didn't offer false hope or platitudes. Instead, he gave a stark but freeing truth. Solitude is not a punishment, it's liberation. The crowd rarely understands the individual. The louder the world, the deeper the thinker's silence. But that silence isn't emptiness, it's clarity. In a world terrified of being alone, people drown themselves in noise, distractions, endless scrolling and hollow validation. They measure worth by likes and followers, never realizing that true strength lies in being comfortable with oneself, even in solitude. Schopenhauer said, "The one who can be alone and still feel whole, that is the strongest among us." This strength isn't about physical isolation but about mental and emotional sovereignty. It's about standing firm in your truth, even when the world tries to pull you back into the herd. You don't have to shrink or apologize for your clarity. You don't need to dilute your insights to make others comfortable. Your depth, your insight, your refusal to settle for illusions, that is your power. Walk your path alone if you must. Because solitude doesn't mean loneliness. It means you've stepped beyond the surface and entered a rare space where growth, wisdom, and true understanding live. You are not alone in your solitude. You are among the few brave enough to see the world as it is, and strong enough to keep walking, even when the crowd turns away. So embrace your solitude. Protect your clarity. Stand tall in your awakening. Because in the quiet spaces where most fear to tread, that is where true brilliance and true freedom are born. You are stepping into a rare kind of power, the power of being unapologetically whole. Solitude isn't about isolation. It's about presence, being fully with yourself without distraction or compromise. It's where your mind can roam freely, unshackled from the noise of conformity and the pressure to perform. It's where your deepest truths take shape and your authentic self emerges from the shadows. Schopenhauer understood that most people settle for surface-level existence, repeating the same tired patterns like clocks stuck on a loop. But the truly thoughtful mind is a compass, always pointing toward something deeper, toward meaning, authenticity, and insight. And no compass can guide you well in a room filled with chatter and distraction. That's why solitude offers something society never can. Freedom. Not just the freedom to be physically alone, but the freedom to think, to feel, and to create on your own terms. It's the mental and emotional space where the most profound ideas, the most authentic visions, and the deepest wisdom are born. Think about the greatest breakthroughs in art, science, and philosophy. They didn't come from crowds, but from moments of quiet reflection. Schopenhauer spent his life in such reflection, not seeking popularity or approval, but pursuing clarity and truth. His bold claim, a person can only be truly themselves when alone. If you don't embrace solitude, you will never know freedom. But here's the real game changer. When you stop chasing validation, you become untouchable. Rejection loses its power over you. You no longer contort yourself to fit into spaces where you don't belong. You stop shrinking your ideas and quieting your voice just to make others comfortable. And suddenly, solitude becomes your fortress, a place to build strength and confront your truth without fear. This is the brutal beauty of Schopenhauer's philosophy. Don't beg for acceptance from a world that fears your depth. Let them misunderstand you. Let them exclude you. Their rejection is proof that you're different, not defect. The world ignores deep thinkers, not because they're wrong, but because they disturb the comfortable illusions everyone else clings to. So if you're labeled too intense, too analytical, or simply too much, take that as a sign you're no longer a prisoner to the herd mentality. Yet solitude is not just about escape, it's a reclamation, a reclaiming of your mind, your time, your energy. It frees you from the endless performance of pretending to be someone you're not. Instead, you get to be who you truly are. And in that quiet, something remarkable happens. You begin to see what others miss: beauty in silence, patterns in chaos, depth in pain. You stop chasing belonging and start becoming. This is what Schopenhauer called the noble intellect, not noble by title or birth, but noble through inner richness and courage. It's not a path for everyone. Most will never choose it because solitude demands you face your own shadow, your own fear. It requires courage few possess. But if you are brave enough to walk that road, if you can sit with the weight of your thoughts and resist the urge to dilute yourself, then you are living the highest form of freedom. You are no longer defined by the noise of the crowd, but by the clarity of your own mind. And that is the greatest strength anyone can have: to stand alone, not lonely, but whole, to embrace solitude as a sanctuary where your true self can grow without apology or compromise, to live not for acceptance but for authenticity. Because in the end, the strongest kind of person is not the loudest or the most popular. It's the one who can be completely alone and still feel whole. Solitude becomes power, not because it sets you apart, but because it makes you real. Don't fear the loneliness that intelligence can bring. Let it shape you, deepen you, and set you free. If you've ever felt out of place, as if your thoughts are too heavy, your questions too profound, your emotions too intense for the world around you, know this: you are not broke, you are not too much, you are simply more aware. That awareness, that depth, it carries a cost: loneliness, misunderstanding, rejection. But here's a truth rarely spoken: pain is not a flaw, it is a sign that you perceive what others ignore, that you feel what others suppress, that your thinking challenges the comfort of the crowd. The very qualities that make you different often make others uncomfortable. They pull away, not because you're wrong, but because you reflect the truths they refuse to face within themselves. This is the secret Schopenhauer understood deeply. You don't need to change who you are, you need to understand who you are. The journey of an intelligent soul is never straightforward. It moves from confusion, why don't I fit in, to clarity, maybe I was never meant to, then to inner power, I don't need to. Along this path, loneliness transforms. It stops being a wound and becomes a mirror, reflecting your truth, your vision, your potential. Schopenhauer once said, "Great men are like eagles, and build their nest on some lofty solitude, not because they are arrogant, but because they need the silence to see clearly. From that height, you are no longer lost in the noise, you are above it." So if society rejects you, let it. That rejection is not failure. It's proof that you think deeply, that you feel honestly, that you refuse to trade authenticity for approval. Let that be your evidence. You're not lost, you're simply ahead of your time. And in time, others may catch up, or maybe they won't, but you will already be free. If you've made it this far, you're not just watching a video, you're searching for meaning, for truth, for something real. And that alone sets you apart. Maybe you've always felt different. Maybe you think too much, feel too deeply, or care about things others ignore. Maybe the world has made you question whether that's a flaw. It's not, it's clarity. Schopenhauer believed the loneliest paths often belong to the clearest mind. And while that clarity may isolate you, it also frees you. Here at Cyphos, this space is for those who think deeply, question everything, and never settle for surface-level answers. You are not alone in how you think or feel. If this message resonated with you, subscribe and join a community that values truth, depth, and the courage to be unapologetically real. For more deep dives into psychology, philosophy, and the mysteries of the human mind, make sure to subscribe and join us on this journey. If this video spoke to you, share it with someone who might need to hear this message today. And if you've experienced this kind of isolation, feeling like your mind moves at a different pace, or your thoughts don't quite fit, tell me your story in the comments. I read every single one. Let's keep building a community of thinkers, of souls who don't quite fit, because we were never meant to fit into the ordinary. This is a space for those who seek depth, who question the world around them, and who refuse to settle for anything less than truth. Together, we're not just surviving, we're thriving, creating a tribe where being different is our greatest strength.